All right, we are live. Hello. Thank you for joining. To those of you who are tuning in. I know it's an unusual night, but I'm going out of town in a little bit, so I needed to do it tonight, which should be back to normal Thursday night next week. And it may be a little later start next Thursday night, but we'll start up then. Let me just get a couple things ready to go here, and then we will get started, just making sure everything is working right. Remember, as always, you can support this channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant. I appreciate that. And you can always subscribe to the newsletter at friendlyatheist.com. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, you can do that for free. Tomorrow morning, I have exclusive information about a new survey that is about to be released in the morning. You will be the first people to hear what that says if you're watching this live tomorrow. Anyway, all right. Where do we start tonight? I figured we would start by talking about this guy right here, because I feel like he begins all of our stories these days. This is Ryan Walters. He's the superintendent of public instruction in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a state that's ranked 49 or 50, depending on which metric you're looking at in terms of education. It's not a state where you're going to get a great education necessarily. Like they're behind the curve on just about everything. And I'm pretty sure Ryan Walters' only goal is to drop it even further, at which point he will call it like some sort of liberal witch hunt on his state. But think about this. If your state was struggling with education, what would you do? You might want to raise salaries for teachers so you can attract more teachers, more highly qualified teachers to your state. That's an option. You might push your legislature, that is also Republican, to make sure public education has more funding. You might want to make sure your curriculum is as good as possible so that the students who are graduating from your schools are better equipped to succeed if they go on to a 2 or 4 year college or university. Ryan Walters has done none of these things. His solutions are like, let's take money from public schools and let's give them to private religious schools, religious charter schools or something. He wants to shove the Bible in as many classes as possible. He's the guy that said, I want millions of dollars to send a Trump Bible to every class. This is a guy who wants the 10 Commandments in the classrooms. Like, he's not trying to attract the best teachers. But you may have seen this in the news recently, because about a month or two ago, Ryan Walters made headlines, not because he was watching anything illicit on his computer accidentally, or so the rumors said, but because this was a headline that we saw in early July. Check this out. Ryan Walters announces PragerU-backed ideology test for teachers from woke states. And it was a weird headline, but let's break through all these words because that's a mouthful. PragerU, not a university, it's just a right-wing organization that calls itself PragerU. They put out material, YouTube videos, curricula sometimes, that's basically, let's try to shove right-wing talking points and brainwash as many people as possible. So Ryan Walters is partnering with them. That's bad. Then they have this ideology test, which did not exist even when this headline was written. Like, what sort of test are you making people take? That's weird. And specifically, the people who would have to take this test are people coming from woke states, as if people from California and New York and maybe Illinois, I don't know, are just dying for the chance to transfer to Oklahoma to teach. I didn't know that was happening. I actually have numbers on this, which I will give you before the end of this segment. But basically, he said, if you're transferring to Oklahoma, maybe your spouse got a job here and now you want to come here and you want to work here and teach in our schools, we're going to put a little hurdle in your way to make sure you're not brainwashed by the wokeism or whatever he thinks is happening. So here's the thing. Ryan Walters says a lot of stuff. He loves getting headlines, but he's not interested in helping students. So the question is, which part of this is BS? Which part of this is just trying to get attention? Again, that headline I just showed you, This is from July 10th. That's when he announced this. And since that time, no one has seen this purported ideology test. Okay, so what was he actually going to do? No one knew. In the meantime, I would just point out, as this headline shows, Oklahoma, this is from a website called NonDoc, which does a lot of really good investigative work in Oklahoma. They pointed out that there's a teacher shortage in Oklahoma, which is to say they really do need more teachers. And instead of raising salaries or making sure teachers are respected in the state, Ryan Walters is saying, let me make it harder for certain teachers to come to my state by making them have to take a test, not just meet the qualifications to teach the subject you're teaching, but some ideology test. Who knows? What Walters did say about this test is that it would assess teachers' knowledge of things like the Constitution and, quote, the fundamental biological differences between boys and girls. I don't know why, like, a high school teacher would need to take. I don't know why a math teacher needs to show they know everything about the Constitution, even though I'm sure they do. But also, oh, is this just an anti-trans thing you're trying to do for no reason? Has nothing to do with how teachers teach. Who knows? But here's what I will tell you. It turns out this test, this ideology test, is not a test at all. It has all been a months-long publicity stunt for PragerU. Ryan Walters is the vessel they are using to promote their propaganda. And this is not me hyperbolizing about this. I will tell you, I took the test. And by the way, every time I say test for like the rest of this segment, just imagine me doing this. But I took it. It's not a test. It's not. I'll tell you why I know that in a second, but it is just a publicity stunt. And Ryan Walters is happy to play along, and he's willing to throw his own children in Oklahoma, the students of Oklahoma, under the bus to do this. So this is as much of a test as PragerU is a university, which is to say it is not. That is part of the scam. So let me tell you why I know this. I took the questionnaire. I took the test. I aced it. I got 100%. And I would love to brag about that, except I can't because you literally cannot get anything lower. So here's what they did. First of all, over the weekend on Sunday, this full-page ad appeared in the New York Times. It says at the top, "Can you pass this test?" They published all 34 questions right here. And I know you can't see this at the very bottom, but at the very bottom of this sheet, it said paid for by PragerU. And before we get to the content, a full-page ad in the New York Times on a Sunday of Labor Day weekend is expensive. My guess is at least 6 figures. That's what PragerU paid to put their ad in the, what I thought was the left-wing New York Times that conservatives hate. But apparently they love it because even they know if we buy a full-page ad in the New York Times, we will get attention. And that's all this is. Because again, this is a publicity stunt. Now, there is a website where you can actually take this exam online. I would love to just walk you through the whole thing. Here's the problem with it. The first couple pages of the website when you sign up to take the test is so much biographical information, name, address, phone number. They want you on their mailing list. And listen, I gave them a fake name. I live on 123 Sesame Street. I gave them a fake email. I did all that stuff just to get through the pages, but it took a little while to do it. I'm not going to waste your time with that, but we will walk through a few of these questions just to show you an idea of what's going on here. And here's the thing. A couple things you need to know about this fake exam is that when you take this online, let's just look at, I'm going to jump to, here's a question, number 11. How many total U.S. senators are there? Okay, straightforward. There's 100. Easy, right? The problem is, if you click A on the website, if you click B, if you click D, all it says is, that's the wrong answer. Try again. And it just takes you right back to the question. You can click the wrong ones all you want, and it doesn't matter because it's not going to let you move forward until you guess the right answer. So you're literally unable to get anything wrong on this test. You just have to answer whatever they want you to answer. Okay, but that at least is a factual, no one is arguing with this sort of question. Okay, fine. Here's the other thing. Oh, by the way, I'm going to skip ahead and show you this other thing really quick because I found it funny. If you finish all the questions, which again, you are guaranteed to get 100% on this, they do send you a certificate, which I did not get because I typed in a fake email address, but this dude did. And this is what he got. Certificate of completion from PragerU. It's the saddest participation trophy you will ever get. This is to certify that Rob Miller has successfully completed the teacher qualification test. I just want to point out, this is the real certificate this guy got. Look at how they spell certify. That's not how you do it. Seriously? No one at PragerU, no one in Ryan Walters' orbit was like, hey, maybe we only have like 10 words on the entire certificate. Should we at least make sure they're spelled correctly? Nope. No one bothered to check it because no one cares because it's not a test. They're just this careless and dumb because, again, this is a right-wing ideology test. You think they care about accuracy? You think they care about honesty? No, I mean, I know this is not the biggest thing in the world. I'm just saying this should not have been hard to spot. Okay, back to the actual test, since they're not good at this performative bullshit. The other thing I want to point out is after you complete the test and you get your 100 and you're going to get that certificate, they don't take you to a page on the website where you could send in your resume now that you have passed the test and you want to teach in Oklahoma. No, they take you to a page where you could donate to PragerU. Because again, that's what this is all about. It's not about getting into the classroom. It's about publicizing some right-wing group. Okay. None of this helps students. None of this helps you become a better teacher. You would learn more by watching a Jackie Chan movie in the 1980s, which is something Ryan Walters just does in his spare time. Anyway, it is just a bad test. Let's go through some of these questions now, because again, this is a bad test. I'm saying that because if you've ever taken a standardized test, you know, like if you took the ACT or the SAT, let's say they ask you a math question. There is the right answer there somewhere, but they also have distractor answers. Like if you didn't know to do a certain step, you might guess the wrong answer. It's something close, but it's not quite right. This entire test, there are no distractors. There are like BS that's absolutely wrong answers and the right answer, and they don't even really try to trick you, which is how you know the people who wrote this are not good at what they do. That's just weird because again, it's an ideological test. Okay, let's go through some of these questions here. Check this out. And again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will go through some of them. Like, I just need to point out the whole point of this test is to see if you're not woke and you're able to teach in Oklahoma. And after you skip question 1, who has the right to direct a child's education? Answer, parents, not those unelected, random, well, Board of Education is elected, but like, who are these other people? Anyway, there's just a slew of questions about trans people, because you know that's what this is really all about, right? What's the fundamental biological distinction between males and females? Is it height and weight? No. Blood type? No one cares. Personal preference? Absolutely not. No one cares. The answer, of course, that they want you to say is chromosomes and reproductive anatomy, which again is so simplified. We'll get into chromosomes in a second, but also reproductive anatomy is a weird way of saying, like, yeah, some women can't have babies. Does that make them not women? No. They have the parts, even if they don't work. It's one of those right-wing things they can't really explain. How is a child's biological sex typically identified? Is it whatever parental affirmation? No. Is it personal feelings? No. Facts don't care about your feelings. Is it online registration? What? No. Obviously, it's visual anatomical observation, whatever the doctor sees when you give birth, and chromosomes. They love chromosomes so much, these right-wing people. Uh, this is one where I'm like, you could at least have made this one harder. Which chromosome pair determines biological sex in humans? I mean, even if you knew nothing about chromosomes, even if you forgot who has the Y chromosome, like the answer is B, but like the other choices don't even make sense. If you slept through biology class, you would know, well, it's something about X's and Y's, right? Like, so the answer is B. It's not even trying anything. The problem with that question, though, as anyone who understands biology for real could tell you, is I literally asked a geneticist I know, Dr. Jay McCrite, who is a transgender science communicator with a PhD in genome sciences. And I'm like, what would you say is wrong with the XXXY answer? Because that does seem overly simplified. And what McCrite told me is, look, you could have X as a chromosome. You could have XXY. You could have XYY. If you have Klinefelter syndrome, you have XXY. And McCrite said 95% of individuals who have that are assigned male at birth, but 5% are assigned female. Like, the point is, it gets complicated. And here's the thing about XXXY. If you are introducing students to genetics, you're trying to teach them a 2x2 Punnett square. You remember those? It kind of makes sense. You want to simplify it as much as possible. So we'll keep it simple. XXXY, there you go. But if you study biology and you actually understand how chromosomes work, you know it's not actually that simple. And that's the thing they don't want you to understand in Oklahoma. They don't want to deal with that. And McCrite also mentioned with that other question, it doesn't matter just the doctor sees your anatomy and just says, oh, it's a boy, it's a girl. As McCrite said, someone can be assigned female at birth and later discover they have XY chromosomes and or internal testes. So again, I'm not saying this happens a lot, but it does happen. Let's go back to this exam for a second. Number 5. Again, so many questions about trans people. Why is the distinction between male and female considered important in areas like sports and privacy? For equity in minority communities? You know that's not right, because the right wing has never cared about that. To preserve fairness, safety, and integrity for both sexes? Oh, that sounds nice. To increase participation in sports? Nope. To enhance the self-esteem of trans children? No, because again, the right doesn't care about that. Their answer is to preserve fairness, safety, and integrity. But it is weird that they lump together sports and privacy. Those are two very different issues. And as McCrite mentioned to me, trans people are much more likely to be attacked in bathrooms than cis people. And they have higher rates of UTIs and kidney infections because they might avoid bathrooms out of fear. So if we're talking about safety, it's not the safety of cis people we need to worry about. It's the safety of trans people in bathrooms. And again, I don't need to rehash all of this because I've done it whenever we talk about Richard Dawkins, I feel. But when it comes to sports, when it comes to integrity of sports, like how many high school students do they think are transitioning just so they could be on like the volleyball team? It's not a thing that happens. You don't do it because, oh, I didn't make the team. Wait a minute. I know what I can do. Let me just put on this wig and now I'm going to try out for the girls team. It's not a thing that happens unless it's like a Wayans brother movie or something like that. Trans people are not disproportionately winning medals or championships. They're not. And if you actually cared about equity, equality, fairness in sports, then you would take size and weight and hormone levels into consideration, which, by the way, professional organizations that care about this stuff, they have done that work. Okay, so it's a dumb question, is my point. I want to jump to something a totally different question here that doesn't have to do with trans people. But again, there's a lot of questions about trans people here. Because again, this is an ideology test. And the whole point of PragerU doing this is to make sure you know, like, hey, in our world, in Oklahoma, trans people do not exist and do not matter. That's what they want to get you to. Here's another question, number 18. What right does the Second Amendment protect? They don't ask about any other like amendments 3 through 10. They vaguely ask about the First Amendment, but like, what does the Second Amendment protect? Is it the right to hunt and fish, arm the military, restrict certain kinds of speech, or to keep and bear arms? And of course, the answer is to keep and bear arms. I just find it weird that they don't mention anything about a well-regulated militia, which is kind of a relevant phrase in the Second Amendment, and one of the reasons it's so controversial. There's another question here I wanted to bring up. If I can find it on... here's a good one. Look at number 25. What did the Emancipation Proclamation do? Okay, did it end prohibition? No. Did it free the Confederate generals? No, though that is something Trump would do today if he had the chance. Did it free the slaves in the North? Nope, they were doing all right. So the answer is D, ended slavery in the rebelling Confederate states. But it's a weird answer because if you know anything about Juneteenth or anything surrounding that, you know that just signing a document did not end slavery. It took a lot more than a signature from Abraham Lincoln to get that done. So again, even if the answer is D, it's not a good answer because it's not complete by any stretch of the imagination. You know what is interesting in this 34 question test for Oklahoma teachers? They never once ask about the Tulsa Race Massacre, which just seems like a weird omission if you're trying to make sure teachers are ready to teach in your state. Here's another one that was also weird. What cause is Martin Luther King Jr. best known for? Did he advocate for segregation? No, it's kind of the opposite. Did he advocate for the abolition of slavery? Not the one that ended with the Emancipation Proclamation a second ago. Did he advocate for DEI? We'll get back to that. And D, did he advocate for racial equality under the law? That's the answer they want you to put down. But again, the reason right-wingers love this sort of answer, they love claiming Martin Luther King Jr. as one of their own because he wanted racial equality and therefore affirmative action and diversity anything and inclusion anything when it comes to race. All of that is awful, they say. Martin Luther King would never have wanted affirmative action or diversity hiring or anything like that because he wanted racial equality. And how dare you be mean to white people who have had it so hard for so long? The weird thing is Martin Luther King, he didn't use the phrase DEI as far as I know, but the idea of diversity and equity and inclusion, those are things he kind of did champion. But that's not the right answer under this test because they really want to make sure you think Martin Luther King Jr. is against help fixing systemic racism. He's very much not for that. So this is the kind of BS they have in this. Was there anything else I wanted to show you? This is one more question I think I wanted to show you here. Which of the following is a phrase from the Pledge of Allegiance? You all know this one, you dirty heathens. Is it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? No. Of, by, and for the people? No. One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all? Ooh, maybe. Or D, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And of course, D is the answer they want you to say. But again, there's no way to point out in this question that, hey, the pledge was changed in 1954 to inject under God in that Pledge of Allegiance. Like for the decade or 12, 14 years prior to 1954, C was the answer. And in fact, it took God to divide one nation indivisible. So which of the following is a phrase from the Pledge of Allegiance is a bad question because it depends what year we're talking about. But the way they put this out there, they want you to believe the pledge has always been what it is today. And that is not true, but they don't want to teach you that, and they don't want you to know that. So it's a bad exam. You get my point here. After all this, you take the exam, you get 100% because there's no alternative. You get your certificate, which you don't have to submit anywhere because it's a participation trophy, and it spells certify wrong, and then you don't get a job. Like, it doesn't take you to a place where you can apply to be a teacher because none of this is about transferring teachers from California who might want to teach in Oklahoma, and this test is going to be the hurdle you got to overcome. All of that is a lie. Ryan Walters is a Christian liar. And the people at PragerU, I'm sure most of them are Christian, but they're conservative liars. And all of this is a publicity stunt to promote PragerU, no matter what these people say. After he posted that, I did appreciate that one Democratic lawmaker in Oklahoma, there's like 4 of them, and he's one of them. His name is Jacob Rosencrantz. He posted this on Facebook. Can you pass this test? Is Ryan Walters the most incompetent state superintendent maybe ever? Yes, most definitely. Yes, in every way. Yes, and it's embarrassing. And the answer is everything. It doesn't matter because just like Walters' test, it doesn't matter what you say. This goes on for a while. Do you believe anything Ryan Walters says? No, nope, nay, never. Does Ryan Walters actually care about parents and children? Heck no, hell no, F no, all of the above. Lovely. Well said. There's a guy named Rob Miller who is the Democrat who is running to become the superintendent of public instruction. He wants Ryan Walters' job next year. I mean, good luck being a Democrat running this, trying to win votes in Oklahoma. However, he took a more serious approach to this stupid thing. But he said, our students don't need gimmicks. They need great teachers. And he said, honestly, it felt like an 8th grade pop quiz. No studying, no effort, barely a second thought. And since the entire test is already posted online, anyone can preview it for themselves. I don't fault people for wanting to ensure Oklahoma has excellent teachers. We all want that. But if you're serious about putting great teachers in every classroom, an online multiple choice quiz that lets you guess until you get it right isn't the answer. There are better ways to get it done. I know nothing about this man other than he would be better than Ryan Walters. I could also say that about literally anyone else. You handpicked out of Oklahoma, it wouldn't matter. They would do the job better than him. So here's the thing. This whole charade, it exposes what Ryan Walters and PragerU actually want. They don't give a shit about better teachers. They don't give a shit about stronger schools or brighter futures for Oklahoma students. All they want are obedient right-wing ideologues who are going to parrot the right-wing worldview. But even then, this isn't a test to do that. This is an advertising campaign for PragerU that is pretending to be an assessment. It's not going to stop outside teachers from transferring into Oklahoma, whoever they are, because it was never intended to do that. Walters just wanted to promote a right-wing group using his government job, so he told the media he was imposing this test on blue state transfers. He's not. He can't. He doesn't have the authority to do that, and a bunch of media outlets fell for it anyway. In fact, there is an actual organization that handles out-of-state teachers who come to Oklahoma and they want to teach there. Well, this organization has the job of saying, well, do you have the certification you need to be a teacher? Like, I got a teaching certificate in Illinois a long while back. If I moved to another state and I wanted to teach there, they would need to know, is my certificate still good? And does it transfer over to Oklahoma? And in most of the cases, no matter what state you're from, yeah, you got a certificate in one state, it's probably fine in another. But the organization that does that is called the Oklahoma Office of Education Quality and Accountability. Not Ryan Walters' office, a different government office. And this is one of the things that I found interesting in what that office said. Check this out. Who is the person writing this? This is Megan Oftedal, who is the executive director of that office. But look at what she said. She said her agency did not have data on how many certified teachers with current valid teaching certification in other states have applied to teach in Oklahoma, which is who the PragerU assessment is targeting. But among uncertified teachers who completed certification tests in other states and now want to teach in Oklahoma, since 2020, this is where it gets good. Since 2020, 573 teachers who lived in another state said they want to transfer to Oklahoma. And of those 573, only 19 came from California or New York. And in 2025, only one applicant came from California and none from New York. So when Ryan Walters says, I want to impose this test and all those woke teachers coming from blue states, we're literally talking about one in the past year who came from California or New York. Like, this is a hurdle you are putting up to keep out nobody. And as this outlet and other outlets pointed out, it's not even on Ryan Walters to decide who gets to be a teacher. This is another statement from that same, who is this one from? Okay, this is just a Democrat in Oklahoma. This is from Oklahoma Voice. Representative John Waldron, a Democrat from Tulsa, said Oklahoma schools already face an educator workforce shortage and shoulder too many burdensome requirements without adding his test targeting blue states. It is silly to impose any requirements on out-of-state teachers in the middle of a massive teacher shortage. This guy's the chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party and a former teacher. Secondly, it's silly to presume that teachers are scrambling to get here from Oklahoma and New York to promote woke ideologies in Oklahoma. That is true. They are not trying to do that. Thirdly, it's simply not legal because Ryan Walters has no authority to decide who gets to be a teacher in the state. That's not his job. He doesn't get to do that. What the hell is he talking about? No one knows. I want to show you one other thing, which is that yesterday on Tuesday, again, that full page ad in the New York Times with all the questions and the online website with all the questions, that went live, I think, on Sunday. Everything happened Sunday. On Tuesday, September 2nd, Ryan Walters put out a video bragging about how awesome this is. I want to play you just a short clip from this video.
I'm excited to announce today the largest teacher recruitment effort in the country. In just a few days over a holiday weekend, despite the best effort of the teachers' unions and the left-wing media, our PragerU America First test has had over 16,000 people take the test and pass it. We have had generated more interest in teaching in Oklahoma than any other state.
He said 16,000 people have taken that test and passed it. Think about that for a second. 16,000 took it. Did they, though? Like, I am very curious what that metric is. Does that mean 16,000 people did what I did, filled out the first couple pages of information, true or false, filled out all 34 questions because you're literally not allowed to get it wrong, and then submitted it? Is that 16,000? Or is it 16,000 people who clicked on the website because they heard, oh, Ryan Walters is doing some stupid shit with PragerU. I want to see what dumb shit is going on. And they clicked on it. And does Ryan Walters count that? Like, I would believe they got 16,000 hits on the website. I don't believe for a second 16,000 people finished this exam, but he's bragging about how 16,000 people passed it as if that required effort. Again, you could purposely get every single question wrong and you would still pass this test with 100%. So look at how he's lying about this stuff, because again, he's a Christian, he's a conservative Christian, and nothing in his religion ever taught him that lying is bad. Thou shalt not bear false witness. He hasn't gotten to that part of the Bible yet. And he also said, like, we have, what did he say at the end of that clip? Like, we're doing better than every other state or something like that. There's a reason other states are not copying what he is doing, because he hasn't achieved anything. Like, if he wanted to put out a press release showing he's achieved something, here's what he should do. Put out a list of how many teachers came to Oklahoma from California and New York over the past 5-6 years, every year. And then later on, after you have all the details for this year, tell us how many came from California and New York this year, and how many of them had to take this test in order to get their job. He will never do that because, one, it's not going to be a very high number. And two, nobody needs to take this test to get their job. You can't even submit your resume anywhere on any of this website where he has this test. So it's all a lie. And this is what bugs me about this. At a time when Oklahoma is starving for qualified educators, Walters isn't doing anything to actually bring them to his state. He is instead erecting these stupid fake hurdles in their path. Like, that's not governance, that's sabotage. That's what you do when you don't care at all about the students who have to live under your regime. These people don't want to help students think critically or thrive academically or engage meaningfully with actual history and science and deal with the complex world we live in. They think everything is black and white. There is no nuance. And the second you try to bring nuance into the classroom, you're doing something woke. Like, he's using kids' classrooms as his personal battleground for his culture war that exists only in his head or on Fox or whatever it is. Like, Oklahoma students don't need this. They need good teachers, and Ryan Walters doesn't want to give them good teachers. But until voters hold guys like this accountable, they're just going to get a guy like Walters, either him or someone just like him, maybe someone worse, who just uses them to advance his own agenda. I don't even know what Ryan Walters wants anymore. I thought he wanted to be Secretary of Education, but Trump gave it to the wrestling lady. So now I think Walters just wants a gig on like Fox or Newsmax. And so all he does is, what can I get headlines for? And this is the way he's doing it. Meanwhile, years and years go by where students in Oklahoma are at a disadvantage because they didn't necessarily get the education they needed to succeed in college. It's so sad. It doesn't have to be this way. But if you're a Republican voter in Oklahoma, this is what you apparently like. All right, I will pause there for now. Oh, this guy. What questions we got here? And they say we're brainwashing the kids. Yes, with our understanding of history, and it doesn't always make us look good, and we're not afraid to admit it because we can talk about it. That's apparently brainwashing kids, teaching them science, that it's more complicated than XXXY. That's apparently brainwashing kids. It's dumb. Is Walters elected or appointed? He was initially appointed by Governor Kevin Stitt, a Republican who's the governor. But I believe he got elected to the superintendent of public instruction job because, again, he's the go-to Republican who was vying for that position. And since he got that job, he's treated it like his personal kingdom. And he's done a lot of shady stuff with it. I've made videos about, like, literally preventing kids from getting like EpiPens in schools and things like that. Or I forgot the specific thing he was using, but like, it got so bad that Republicans in the Oklahoma House tried to impeach him, and they just didn't have enough Republicans who wanted to go along with it. But he's genuinely a bad human being. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth, a member for 13 months. Of course it's misspelled, certified. They went to Trump University, also a fake university, right? These people love their fake university. Did you all see that Barry Weiss, who ran that fake university in Texas, University of Austin? Now CBS News is like, let's give you a truckload of money and you can run CBS News with us. We're all screwed. It's so sad. 16,000 people took the test. Of that number, 7 were teachers from out of state. The rest were content creators of some sort. Did you ever see the Onion headline? Like, I'm paraphrasing and I'm going to screw it up, but like 70% of Klan rally is undercover reporters. I feel very much that this online website for this fake test is one of those things where most of the people who went to visit the site were people just curious what sort of dumb shit Republicans are up to, and not people who are genuinely curious about teaching in Oklahoma. Because if you wanted to do that, you would actually go to other websites to make sure your certification is good and figure out what districts have job openings. You would not go to Ryan Walters' fake website. And by the way, it's not even an Oklahoma website. You go to PragerU's website to take this test. A journalist should ask him how many failed the test. I would love it if Ryan Walters spoke to journalists ever, instead of just sicking one of his spokespeople on them. And again, like Trump, Ryan Walters' spokespeople just yell at reporters for asking them legitimate questions. They do it every time in every article. Thanks for gifting all the memberships. Thank you, Bobtailed Trucker. Love it. Thank you for that donation. I hope you're safe with the occupation coming your way. I'm downstate thinking of you. Yeah, Trump is going to send his goons to Chicago, supposedly. I just got to say, I mean, I live outside of Chicago, about 45 minutes outside of it, but I am genuinely happy that we have Governor Pritzker and not a red state governor who is just willing to let Trump's goons take over the city and just make people's lives worse. Because they're just going to walk around, find people of color to harass, and do nothing of actual value. Thank you for that donation. Look, I don't condone bullying, but I don't not have a little voice in my head keeping me from doing stupid things or making very stupid typos due to various bullying in my life. You don't have to. You don't have to. Like, you wonder about Ryan Walters. Like, what made you want to hurt all these people so much? Like, what did your parents do so miserably wrong that you turned out this way? Who in your life? Don't you have any good role models in your life? What's going to happen to his kids? I don't know. They're not being raised by someone who's a good person, and then you wonder how many generations of trauma this is going to cause. Why no stream tomorrow? What you up to? I'm going on a hike and I'm going to hurt myself. I'll tell you more about it next week if I survive. But I'm out of town tomorrow for like the next 4 or 5 days. All right, I'm jumping ahead. Let's go to a totally different story. I needed to get away from Ryan Walters, so I have something very un-Ryan Walters-like to talk about. Okay, so there are several states that still have blue laws on the books. And if you're not familiar with blue laws, these are laws that basically forbid the sales of certain items like alcohol on Sundays, or at least Sunday morning. So for example, North Dakota used to ban retailers from being open on Sundays. And that didn't change until 1991. And even then, most stores could only open their doors after 12 o'clock, like afternoon. It wasn't until 2019 that they're like, why are we doing this? Let's get rid of it, even though some Republicans are now trying to reinstate the blue laws. So why do they do that? Why do they have these laws that say you're not allowed to buy alcohol or other stuff on a Sunday? Because traditionally, historically, the people who ran these places wanted you to go to church. We don't want to give you alternatives to going to church. We don't want you to do anything on the Sabbath day. That's your day of rest. Why would you be out shopping? So these are like religious relics that still exist in a lot of places. And so most places do not have these blue laws anymore, but some do. And one of the ones I learned recently still had it is Bergen County, New Jersey. Now, New Jersey has, I believe, 21 counties. And even though New Jersey has a law on the books, like an archaic law that has their blue laws there, they basically allowed every county to vote on whether they wanted to honor the blue laws or just ignore them. And 20 counties said, yeah, to hell with those. Those are dumb. One county in New Jersey said, we would like to keep them in place. And that is Bergen County, New Jersey. It's one of the richest counties in the country. But basically, the way this works in that county is unless you want to buy food or gas, those are okay. You can't buy anything else on a Sunday. No merchandise shopping on a Sunday. And that's especially true in the city of Paramus. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. But Paramus, where the restrictions are even stricter. Like, they shut down every store that does not sell food. So Bergen County, you can't really buy anything. If you wanted to save your shopping, clothes shopping, get some stuff for the kids for school, you can't do it on Sunday. And literally, the town's laws say if any businesses are allowed to be open on Sunday, other businesses would be pressured to open as well. And let me show you this. This is the actual law they have on the books on Sundays. Here we go. I wanted to show you this because I was shocked by this. Right here, the mayor and council hereby finds and declares. Look at number 7. The conduct of each Sunday business by some tends to compel all businesses to remain open every day of the week for long hours, thereby resulting in the physical and moral debasement, debasement of the persons directly concerned with their operation, and impinging upon the peace and quiet and rest of the residents of the borough. So not only do they think it's going to lead to everyone having to be open on Sunday, and that would be bad for you, but it's going to annoy us with all the traffic. Come on, you guys. And look at number 10. The public policy of our state is against all worldly employment on Sundays, except works of charity and necessity. This site keeps pulling me back somewhere. Anyway, so they have their archaic rules about why you're not allowed to stay open on Sunday. It's a little weird. So what do you think actually happens in a town like this, in a county like this? Well, a lot of people end up driving to a neighboring county if they need to buy some stuff. Because guess what? For a lot of people, Sunday may be the only day they have available to go buy stuff, to do their shopping. So if they can't get it in their county, they got to go to another one. If they're worried about traffic, if this county is like, we don't want any traffic on Sunday, but apparently they're all fine with sending more traffic to neighboring places, let's make them suffer a little more. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, that's the situation that is happening in Bergen County. Now, here's the question I want to raise to you. What happens if you opened up a mall? Not just a mall, but the second largest mall in America, just after the Mall of America in Minnesota, I believe. If you opened the second largest mall and you said, where can I put my mall so that there's a lot of rich people who might want to shop at it? I got it. I'm going to put it in Bergen County. This mall is so big. It's called the American Dream Mall. I'll show you a picture of it because I saw the picture of it online. I'm like, this looks pretty nice. Here we go. Let me show you this picture. It looks like a place I would want to go to. It's just big. There's a lot of stuff happening over here at the American Dream Mall. Anyway, so they open up this mall. They want people to shop there, but they have this little problem, which is that you're not allowed to sell stuff in this county on Sundays. So what do you do if you're this mall and you want to open up? By the way, it's so big, they have an indoor ski slope and they have a water park in this place. Amazing. And I know someone asked this. I'm going to bring this up right now. People still go to malls? By and large, no, they don't. But some malls that have upgraded, that offer more than just old stores, they actually are doing okay. They're doing fine. And if you're a big mall like this, you're doing okay. And the stores that are in your mall are doing fine as well. So this place opened in 2019. And the owners promised, listen, we will keep the retail stores closed on Sunday, but we're going to keep the food court open. We will keep the theme parks that are in our mall open, but we'll close the t-shirt shops and all the merch places like that. Anyway, what's funny about this is earlier this year, there was an article in a local paper that said, you guys, they're totally not closing down on Sundays. This is an article on a northjersey.com. American Dream stores open Sundays. They ignore Bergen blue laws. County officials vow to fight. And this reporter basically said, I went there on a Sunday and everything's totally open. These people are they said they would close them on Sundays. They're totally not doing that. And in this article, they point out, here we go. Let me show you this. County officials are not pleased with American Dream's decision to stay open and have vowed to fight what an emailed statement from county official Derek Sands called a disregard for the blue laws. Its violation gives American Dream Mall tenants an unfair advantage over all other Bergen County businesses lawfully complying with state law. They're so upset that this mall dares to be open for customers on a Sunday. How could they? Oh, my heavens. So in May of this year, Bergen County officials asked the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority, and I think that's the group that kind of oversees the land it's on or something. They said, hey, go enforce the law, enforce the blue laws on this mall. And the state says to them, that's not our job. And that was it. And then the Attorney General of New Jersey didn't even respond to that request. So the question is, if the mall has to obey the blue laws, well, who's going to make them? And it looked like the mall was just going to stay open because Sundays are good for business. And this made me laugh too. I'll get to this in a second. But here's the reason I'm bringing all this up. Recently, the borough of Paramus, they filed a lawsuit against everybody they could think of. Who did they go after here? They went after, I don't know how to pronounce that first word, but it's the owners of American Dream. Get it? Amareem LLC. They sued the New Jersey Sports and Exposition Authority. They sued the borough of East Rutherford, and they sued the county of Bergen. And they're going after everybody saying, hey, the mall is open and it shouldn't be. And this is funny. Let's read through the preamble, shall we? The American Dream Mall in East Rutherford, New Jersey is the second largest mall, blah, blah, blah. The mall owners host more than 120 retail businesses. They go on. Here we go. Recently, those businesses, with the assistance and complicity of the mall's ownership, have found a simple solution to that problem of having to close on Sundays. They have elected to ignore the state law. These businesses, with the encouragement and support of the mall's ownership and the acquiescence of the other defendants here, have violated the law hundreds, if not thousands of times since January of this year. Oh my God. The behavior of these scofflaws is not without consequence. Along with hefty criminal fines, the blue laws declare that any property that engages in more than 4 illegal sales on any Sunday is a public nuisance and can be shut down. And my favorite thing about this entire lawsuit is they had a picture in here somewhere. I'm going to scroll down until I find it. They had a picture of the mall saying, we know they're open. You know how we know where they're open? Because they have this advertisement running outside the mall bragging about how they are open on Sundays. Like the mall is like, yeah, we know. We don't care. I so love that part of the lawsuit. So there's 120 stores inside this mall that are open on Sundays. They should not be open. And the mall owners have basically gone on the record to say, you know what? We don't really care about this lawsuit. This is what they told the Associated Press. If I could pull this up here in a second. Here we go. This is what they, oh no, come back my share screen. Let's try this one more time. Here we go. County officials. Nope, that's not the one I want. Come back. There we go. A statement from American Dream argued that Bergen County's blue laws don't apply to the complex because it sits on state-owned property. The lawsuit is a meritless political stunt driven by private competitors' interests. So here's the thing. This is very interesting because you know the mall and the people who own this very, very expensive mall, you know they have good lawyers. I'm sure they've thought through, can we keep our place open on Sundays? Yeah, we can. And their lawyers are going to defend the hell out of it. And I'm guessing the mall has better lawyers than the borough of Paramus does. Hypothesis, right? Here's the other thing. The land that the mall sits on is also the same, like the people who own that land, it's the same organization that owns MetLife Stadium, which is very close to the mall. And that's where the New York Jets and the New York Giants play football on Sundays. And guess what? If you go to that stadium on a Sunday for a game, you can buy merch at that stadium. You know why? Because it's state-owned property and the borough does not own it. And the mall is basically saying, well, the football stadium's allowed to sell merch on Sundays. We're owned by the same company. So you know what? Screw you, town. We can be open on Sundays too. That's their argument, which I think makes a lot of sense because there's a couple ways this could go. If the lawsuit says, hey, mall, you got to shut down on Sundays, you're violating the law, that means the football stadium presumably would also have to stop selling merch on Sundays, I would think. And I'm pretty sure football fans would be very upset about that. Or the lawsuit's going to go in the mall's favor and everyone can be open on Sunday, at least in the mall, in which case, guess what? The blue laws have been nullified because where else are you going in that area on a Sunday? Everyone's going to the mall on a Sunday. Look at that mall. It's awesome. I would go to that mall just to walk around, get my steps in. So here's where you might have some sympathy for the other side, though. When they were trying to get opened, because it took a while to acquire the land and build the building, this is what they were saying to government officials. That was not, when it comes to what they are telling the courts now, that was not the position of the mall's owners in 2012 as they tried to win state approval to build the facility. At a hearing about the mall with the state's Department of Environmental Protection that year, the president of development for the company that owns the mall said the mall would comply with existing blue laws that limit and preclude certain retail shopping activities on Sundays. So when they were trying to get approval for their mall, they're like, of course we'll follow the blue laws. And now that they exist and they're doing just fine, the company's like, sorry, we're on state-owned land. We don't have to follow your stupid laws. Haha, we win. I don't know. It's hard to imagine the mall will face any real consequences for the crime of trying to sell people things they want to buy on a Sunday when they have time to shop. I don't know. I will say this lawsuit it's really about the grip of archaic laws that are masquerading as community values. Like blue laws were imposed at a time when religion could dictate your civil life. They were not about giving people a chance to rest on Sabbath, right? But they were about pressuring people to go to church instead of going anywhere else. And so even if, and I've heard this from some critics, even if they say, I live in this community and on Sunday mornings, there is no traffic. It's so peaceful. It's so quiet. We like it this way in this town. Even that comes with trade-offs. Because again, forcing stores to close on Sundays, that deprives workers from making money. It prevents the businesses from selling to customers. And it makes it harder for customers to buy the shit they need when they have the time to shop. And also, it's not like the traffic disappears, as I said earlier. It just goes somewhere else. Or it increases on a Saturday. Like, I don't know how they haven't worked that into their equation. But this is really about weaponizing a place that people actually want to shop at. The blue laws are not a tradition worth saving. It just exposes how pointless it is to base any public policy on religious beliefs or nostalgic fantasies. You don't have to do it. And so I am curious what happens from here on out. I don't know how this legal battle is going to go, even though my gut instinct is the mall's going to be just fine. They have the money. They have the lawyers. I don't think the town does. So they're going to lose. The town's going to lose this battle, is my guess, as a non-lawyer who's just reading about this. But anyway, I will leave it there. I'm curious to know what you think about this. Blue laws sound anti-capitalist. I don't care, but it seems weird coming from them. Also, if you're the town, don't you want to make more money? Isn't that worth the payoff? Because the stuff you could do with that money to benefit the community might be better off than shutting down. Like, again, you could make the same argument about Chick-fil-A that is famously closed on Sundays. They could make more money if they're open. But they're a private company, and they could say, you know what? This matters more to us than making more money on a Sunday. That's their decision. They can go with it. But again, if you're the mall, I don't blame them for fighting this because they have an argument that might actually work in their favor, which is the town doesn't control the laws they operate under. I lost 6 good friends when they crashed on their way back from buying beer in the next county. Jesus. I wrote a paper about it for a college paper. I named it No Sale on Sunday. That's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that. And I'm not blaming this on the blue laws, but again, if you have to drive further to get stuff you need on a Sunday, you're not actually making people's lives better. And so that's an extreme example of of a situation where the trade-off isn't really worth it. Thanks for that donation. I mean, I get it. Ever gone through a stack of lumber at Lowe's on a Sunday morning before everyone wakes up? Nothing but the smell of fresh pine. I do it every week. It's lovely. A hike? Should I be concerned about the hike I'm about to take? Yes, very much. Do I look like a man who's ever been outdoors in my life? No, I'm about to go on the most dangerous hike in America, according to lists that I have been doom scrolling through. But Half Dome, here I come. It's not going to go well. I reserve the right to turn back as soon as I realize I'm in over my head. But I got a permit many months ago, and I'm like, well, I'm taking advantage of this permit that I know people struggle to get. So I'm going Friday. We'll see how it goes. All right, I'm jumping to a different story here. Let's see. Oh, I'm so excited to share this one with you. Give me a moment. Meanwhile, while I get this situated, you can all tell me, those of you who do hike, tell me how Half Dome's going to go for me, because everything on the internet tells me I will not survive it. All right, I think I have what I need here. All right, I will tell you more about my failed hiking expeditions in a moment. No, it's all good. I'm excited about it. I've trained for it. I have all the stuff I need. I'll be fine, I'm sure. But if there's no show next week, you know why. Something bad has happened. And then that clip will be played over and over. Okay, let me jump to this next story. For about 25 years, there was a man named Joseph Brent Walker who wrote a column called Value Speak. One word, V capitalized, S capitalized, Value Speak. And basically, he was syndicated in like 30 newspapers, and he talked about the importance of traditional values. Let me show you an example of this. This is something he wrote. Value Speak. Faith is not for wimps. And if you scroll down here, look at this. And he writes basically saying, my kids are safe and healthy, and like, I know I'm lucky, but I know other families are not lucky. Why is that? And he says, so if guardian angels are in any way responsible for the safety and well-being of my family, I'm thankful. Truly I am. But I don't understand the seeming capriciousness of the system. Why is it that my children seem to have been so conscientiously protected while other children face the same situations they faced, including the simple daily act of going to school with disastrous consequences? What happened to those guardian angels? Were they busy, distracted, not paying attention, or just not very good at their jobs? God only knows. And then he writes, but faith is not for wimps because blah, blah, blah. Faith gives us courage to cope with life's vicissitudes and apparent inequities. So faith is good. Guardian angels are real. He's been very lucky with his life. Isn't that a sweet, sweet column? Let me show you another column this guy wrote. This is an interesting one that will absolutely not be relevant later on in this segment. The Anonymous Intimacy of the Internet, published in 2013. This is interesting. My experience has been that people are basically good, and if given half a chance, they will usually do the right thing in most situations, except when they get online. And then, I don't know, something happens to some people. They start doing things and going places and saying stuff that they would never do, go, or say in the real world. One of my friends blames it on what he calls the anonymous intimacy of the internet. If no one can see you and no one knows your real name, his reasoning goes, then you could say or do anything you want and not really be accountable for it. And without accountability, he says, things can get ugly. Which, to be fair, all of that is true. We all know what anonymous trolls look like on the internet and how they ruin everything. And they also now run everything on Twitter. There's one more article I wanted to show you that is, I don't know, it just made me cringe the way he wrote it, but whatever. Like, he's an older guy, so I don't know, do you let this slide or not? Let me read it. We'll see. Way more than just a pretty face. I'll admit it. I was first attracted to his wife, Anita. I was first attracted to Anita because she was, well, hot. But let's be real here. Her, hotness, especially those big, beautiful, bewitching eyes, played a significant role in the process that led me to ask for her hand in marriage. Come on, I was 22 years old at the time. It's not like I was going to fall in love with someone simply because I thought she would probably be a good mother to our children. And yet, 9 months, almost to the day, after we were married, which is Mormon speak for we banged on our wedding night, that's exactly what Anita was. The mother of our first child, confidently cradling in her arms a beautiful little girl who everyone said had her mother's hot, hot eyes. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love it. But okay, if you want to say that's romantic, so be it. But this is the sort of column this guy wrote for decades. And you could see why maybe that gets syndicated in a lot of newspapers when you have an audience full of people who might like that sort of thing. And this guy isn't just a random columnist who wrote these sorts of things. He's a guy who knew right from wrong. He has his faith in his family to keep him on the right track. And in 2011, as he's writing this column, he gets hired by a Utah-based news outlet, Deseret News, as the editor of their faith section. Because not only is this a guy who's been thinking about religion in all of his columns, he's also a guy with ties to the Mormon church. He is a Mormon. He knows a lot about religion. And I mean, if you want to cover the Mormon church, the Deseret News is the place to go. So again, this guy became the head of their faith section. All right, fine. Not only was he running the faith section of their newspaper, this is a guy whose previous job was working in the public affairs department of the Mormon church. So like he had connections to the actual inner workings of the church, which is a valuable thing to have if this is your beat and this is the job you have. He knew a lot about the LDS community. He did that for 2 years. And more recently, because newspapers have shrunk, they let go of a lot of people. Faith sections, you almost never see in newspapers. He more recently worked as a communications director for the Utah Department of Transportation. So that's been this guy's career trajectory. A lot of religion, a lot of faith, a lot of writing. And so naturally, he works in communications now. Have you guessed where this story is going yet? Okay, let me tell you where this story is going, because this is the headline I saw very recently. That was disturbing for many reasons that I will share with you as soon as this thing decides to pop up. And here we go. Should I just show you the headline first? Let me show you the headline. You can experience what I experienced. Why? Of course, now is when the website chooses not to load properly. I don't know. We'll cut this out later. But this website's being evil right now. While I'm waiting for it to fix up. Oh, is it working now? Let's see. Let's see. Here's the headline. 70-year-old Washington City man, former traditional values columnist, arrested for alleged enticement. And that headline does not do justice to what we are talking about here. But let's read through the relevant section of this. During the operation, and you know things are bad when they start the article about how you got arrested by saying during the operation. This is very Chris Hansen stuff happening here. During the operation, the decoy was contacted by an individual with the screen name of William Wallace, later identified by police as Joseph Walker, who reportedly started engaging in sexually explicit online conversations with the purported juvenile. So the detectives pretended to be a 14-year-old girl, and this dude starts talking to her thinking she is a 14-year-old girl, and then Chris Hansen appears, I assume, out of nowhere. Guess what? Maybe if you weren't anonymous on the internet, maybe you would not have done this. The suspect's intent, the detective noted, was to seduce, lure, and entice the minor into engaging in various sexual acts. Yikes, that's disturbing. The detective posing as a decoy made it abundantly clear she was claiming to be a 14-year-old girl. Yikes. Throughout the message threads, Walker allegedly stated he did not care if she was a minor. Rather, it was her age that made him aroused. Walker then sent her inappropriate images on at least 2 occasions. Yikes. So that's what this dude's been up to. I'm not done with the story yet. I just wanted you to experience that like I experienced that. Side note, why is he using the online screen name William Wallace, the dude from Braveheart? You know who else used the screen name William Wallace as his online username? It was Mark Driscoll, the pure alpha male patriarchal pastor who has a history of emotional abuse. He used to go on like religious forums under the name William Wallace and say awful things about women and gay people. Beliefs he still says as himself, mind you, but he did it under a pseudonym. I don't know. It seems to be a thing that religious people use as their screen name when they do horrible things. Anyway, Walker supposedly told this decoy 14-year-old that they need to keep their chats secret. And he also, according to investigators, laid out elaborate fantasies about what he would do if given the opportunity. Yikes. When they filed the police report in this situation, this is another thing they pointed out. Defendant presents a substantial danger to the community, specifically to children. Yeah, sure seems that way. I agree. Here's my favorite part about this otherwise horrific story. When this was all happening, a reporter from a news outlet saw that the police report had apparently been filed and it was in the courtroom, but they had not arrested this guy yet. So what happens? Again, same website's acting up again. What happens is the reporter calls up this guy. They call up the reporter. The reporter calls up Joseph Walker and says, hey, man, I heard you're about to get arrested or I heard you're in trouble for luring some 14-year-old girl. Do you got any comment about that? And check this out. Apparently, Walker is like, I don't know anything about that. That's very interesting that you would tell me that. And then he tries to run away. He actually said to the reporter, I am not aware of these charges, so I don't have anything to say. And then he tried to flee. Look at this. Look at this. Oh my God. In addition, there was evidence to suggest Walker attempted to flee the court's jurisdiction before turning himself in, the prosecutor alleged. Gallegos told the judge when the warrant was first issued and before any charges were filed, prosecutors learned that a news outlet reportedly reached out to Walker and disclosed information on the case. At that point, Gallegos said, Walker left work early because he works for the Department of, transportation? Shit, I forgot, but he works for the government. He left work early and was essentially on the run to some degree. Officers were unable to locate the dude for several days until he hired a defense attorney who essentially told him to turn himself in. He hires a lawyer and the lawyer's like, you need to make sure you show up because it's really hard to defend you right now and you are not making my job any easier. So that's when he turned himself in. Oh my God, what is he doing? And so here's this guy now showing up to court. He's going for his Zoom meetings. Yikes. Here's another thing I want to share with you about this. So he now faces 3 felony charges, 5 years in jail for each of them. He could be spending up to 15 years in jail. He's 70 years old. That would take him through pretty much the end of his life. I don't know if the judge is going to do that or not. Again, he's accused of this. He has not been convicted of this yet. Keep that in mind. There is another element of this that I find really interesting and unpleasant. There is a website called floodlit.org, FLOODLIT.org. And basically, it is a website that tracks abuse by members of the Mormon Church. And they have a whole page on this guy now that he's been arrested, Joseph Brent Walker. And look what they point out. He was not just a Mormon. He's a former Mormon bishop, like a leader in his congregation. He's also the stake presidency counselor. Like he was basically promoted to oversee a number of Mormon churches. There's the dude in his better days. And here's what I found really disturbing after this guy got arrested. Yesterday, you could see this right here. Yesterday, the court received 10 letters from supporters asking for Walker to be released after he was initially held without bail. Basically, Walker is such a fixture in the Mormon church and among his readership, and now he's been arrested. And all these people, I don't know how many of the details of this story they know, But they wrote to the judge saying, listen, he's a good dude. You can let him go at least until the trial happens, right? And Floodlit managed to get a hold of several of these letters. And look at what they say. Here's one person. The supporter said Walker is a flawed man, but he is not a predator, nor a threat to any community he is involved in. I mean, according to the chats he had, he kind of is or wanted to be. So what is that person saying? His son said, let him go. Okay. Here's another one. Grant Jensen, a BYU college dean, called, I don't know why I say Mallard there. Was that something else? I'll skip that one. Here's one. The final letter we obtained was from a department chair at Utah Valley University. And this person wrote, as I've processed this knowledge over the past few days, it's been nearly impossible to reconcile the man I know and the person described in that article. You know, the one who chats with 14-year-olds under the name William Wallace. I don't wish to downplay these charges in any way, only to offer mine as another voice asking that he be released on bail pending trial. All these people want this dude to just let him have his good life. He's a good dude. So what if he said creepy things to a 14-year-old or who he thought was a 14-year-old and sent her very inappropriate pictures? Why should that matter? He didn't actually do it. I mean, he wanted to, but he didn't. So in any case, he was in jail without bail, but he has since been released to home confinement with an electronic ankle monitor. He's also forbidden from accessing the internet or having any contact with minors. That's where we're at right now. We will see what happens. So just to summarize this entire story, if you're keeping score here, Joseph Walker, he spent decades lecturing the public about morality and faith, using his columns to lament a world where anonymous intimacy could lead people astray. And yet the second he thought he was anonymous online, he preyed upon the sort of victim he once claimed to protect. The same guy who was like, where are the guardian angels at for everyone else, has become the sort of person that the guardian angels should have been protecting kids from. Like, his writings preached accountability, his actual behavior mocked accountability because he thought he could get away with it. I mean, this is the sort of hypocrisy we see from religious leaders or people who kind of shout their religion from the rooftops and wear it on their sleeves. The louder they preach, the more you should default assume it's all an act. So Walker, he's like, I'm a man of faith. I'm a guy who knows morality and right from wrong. I am a former Mormon bishop, and I can shape communities with my words. And behind the curtain, it's a different story altogether. That's not just a personal failure. It tells you something really awful about a culture where men can be elevated for what they say while we ignore the actual stuff they do. So his columns were not a guide to a better life. They were basically a way to keep people off the scent for a long time. And I do wonder, and I don't know this, is this the first time he's done this or the first time he got caught? I don't know. Okay, I'll pause there. What questions we got for this story? Exactly what I expected. Yeah, it's always the ones you absolutely expect, right? Hashtag not a drag queen. He's not gay. He's also not trans. I mean, right? Thanks for that donation. So Trump was just terminally online in his youth. I mean, that would explain so much. But no, he's just a bad person for all the other reasons. You give a child a lot of money and no guidance as a child, look what happens. Walker turned into runner. I am deeply angry I did not think of that first. Thanks, Donna. Deeply religious does not equal good. I think this is the big takeaway. It's not that religious people can't be good. Obviously, we all know religious people who are good, but religion should not be synonymous with virtue. If someone tells you they're religious, your first instinct should not be, well, this person's got to be good. And yeah, this is every like Republican campaign ad. Like, I'm a Christian first, conservative second, Republican third. Why do they say they're Christian first? Because it's a way to signal I'm a good guy. You can trust me. And really, if you say you're religious first, that makes me absolutely not want to trust you. And you all know what I think about religion in general, but it's like this has nothing to do with that. It's that if you're leading by telling me your religious label, then I have questions. Many think religiosity is a cloak of invisibility. That's very true. Like if you tell people you're religious, again, you're throwing them off the scent. Maybe under that guise, you can do a lot of horrible things because they grant you respect that you haven't earned. They grant you trust you haven't earned. That's why there are so many stories of priests behaving badly. People send me, I always appreciate when people send me story tips. And so many times they're like, look, this priest got arrested. This priest got arrested for committing fraud, doing something awful with a victim, etc. And in my head, I'm like, there's nothing for me to write about because these stories are a dime a dozen. There are so many of them that happen all the time. I can't cover it. But occasionally you hear those stories and you look into the details like this guy. It's like, no, this is a bigger story than just priest behaving badly, bishop behaving badly, something like that. So yeah, you do wonder how if he thought he could get away with it, not because he was anonymous, but because people would never suspect him because he had such a good religious reputation, as you could see from the letters people sent in his defense. Thanks for that donation. Worth noting that Braveheart was actually Robert the Bruce. That damn movie is nowhere close to real history. You know what? I have not actually seen Braveheart, and I'm not sure I want to. Of all the movies I haven't seen that are blind spots in my knowledge that I kind of want to see, this is not one that ever made the cut. So I still haven't seen it, and I'm not sure I want to. You could tell me if I should. I don't know if I want to see this one. Anyway. Did Jess talk you into this? I assume you're talking about me going on the hike. Blink twice if she's holding you hostage. Also, Tiny Human says hi and chat. Remember to like and sub to the channel. No, Jess would never convince me to go on a hike anywhere. No, this is something I like to do. I will tell you, I have done Angel's Landing in Zion, which is beautiful, and it was fun. And I felt this sense of accomplishment after I did that one. I've done other really long hikes and strenuous hikes before. But the one that's been on the bucket list for everyone who does that sort of thing is Half Dome. And so it's been like, I don't know, 8 months now in the making. And so this is the weekend. Let's see what happens. I hope it doesn't rain. All right. Wear proper clothes. Check. Carry lots of water. Gonna do that. Bring buddies. You think I have friends? I do this. Don't ever leave the trail. Wasn't planning on it. Got my all trails. I should be good to go. I'm good on that front. Stay clipped into the cables. This is interesting. I will skip ahead. I mean, I know I have other stories to do. I do not have clips for the cables because I've heard mixed things about clipping yourself on the mountain versus having gloves that you could pull yourself up by because the clips may be more annoying than they are worth, especially if you're not using them regularly. So I'm not doing clips. I'm just going to pull myself up with my massive upper body strength. This is the last episode of this live stream. It's leg day, but it's like leg day with the heights. Yes. I mean, I fully expect my entire body to be jello about 30% of the way into this hike. If you're bored, you can go look up YouTube videos of Half Dome now, then come back to this stream and you will start wondering what the hell I think I'm doing. You'll have more chance of something bad happening amongst the teeming hordes with no park service to help. Is that a warning? is that something else? I'm gonna not something bad is gonna happen, and I'm gonna just scream Doug Burgum's name as I fall down. Message me if you have any questions. I will. Thank you. I will absolutely. I think I'm all checked out now. I've done the homework. I should be all right. We'll see. We'll see. All right. I'm jumping to another story here. Let me pull some stuff up here. Okay. By the way, before I start it, I do see this right here. A good idea to go back if something goes wrong. Don't be afraid to cancel for iffy weather. I am aware of that. And if there is iffy weather, that's the point where I've already It's already understood. I'm not going to take chances on the mountain, even though I have a permit. I'm not going to do it if the weather sucks. Okay, I'm going to jump to another story. So I did this story about a year ago, but there's an update. And because I don't know how many people are watching this live stream now that have not watched a year ago, so I'm gonna rehash some of the stuff I talked about in the past, and then I will tell you why I'm talking about it now. But basically, here's the backstory. It involves Texas and education. In 2023, Republicans in Texas passed a law that was projected to cost the state about $731 million over 2 years. And what the state did is they directed the Texas Education Agency to develop instructional materials that aligned with their state standards. And basically, what they were saying is if you're a school and you got to teach social studies, what do? You got to buy textbooks. You got to make sure what you are teaching aligns with what the state requires you to teach. That's a lot of work. Why doesn't the state just create like a generic version of the same material and schools could buy it directly from us for very cheap and it's better for everybody? That's kind of the theory behind this. It's like, do you want the name brand or do you want the generic? Well, for a lot of cash-strapped districts, the generic version of the textbook might be just fine. So that's what Texas decided to do. They said, hey, Texas Education Agency, you make stuff for like social studies classes and things like that. And they also dangled a carrot in front of school districts because they wanted them to use the generic material. They said, if you use the state's resources, we will give you up to $60 per kid in your district. So like for a lot of poorer school districts, you're telling me I can get these resources and money for my school if I say yes to what you're offering us? That's a very hard thing for a school district that is cash strapped to say no to. So if you're the Texas lawmakers, you're also parading this around like, look, we're helping the schools by offering this to them to save them money. That's the idea behind this. So we can debate whether this is a good use of tax dollars. Now, critics of this whole plan said, if you really want to teach kids and make sure they have access to the resources you need, why don't you raise teacher salaries so more teachers come to Texas? We have a teaching shortage. But in any case, at the end of 2023, the State Board of Education posted drafts of the new material online, like the generic textbook draft version 1.0, and it included English language arts and reading material for kids in grades kindergarten through grade 5. And the reason they do this is so the public can weigh in on it beforehand. And one of the big takeaways after they posted this material is that, wow, there's a lot of Jesus shit in here. Let me give you an example. This is from a news outlet called The 74, which covers education. What one of the professors said, I want to pull this up here. Here we go. While largely hidden from public view, the redesign sparked behind-the-scenes debate long before its release. When a leading curriculum publisher balked at the state's request to infuse its offering with biblical content, and this is important, let me just talk about that. The state had a vendor that makes textbooks for the state of Texas. Texas is a great state if you're a textbook publisher because Texas buys a lot of textbooks. There's a lot of people there. But they said, Texas Republicans said to this publisher, hey, we changed our standards. You need to include more Jesus in your textbooks. And the publisher's like, we're not doing that because we actually care about education. And also, if we do that, other states aren't going to want to buy our material because you're going to water down our reputation. So no, we're not watering down our curriculum to include more Bible stuff in it. So back to this article. When a leading curriculum publisher balked at the state's request to infuse its offerings with biblical content, Texas officials turned to other vendors. They include conservative Christian Hillsdale College in Michigan. They went to the conservative Christian college in Michigan, best known for like basically having a hand in everything the Trump administration is doing and Project 2025. And it's just a right-wing think tank, basically. And they went to the right-leaning Texas Public Policy Foundation, which supported an unsuccessful effort to require the Ten Commandments in every classroom. an effort that has since succeeded. We'll get to that story later. So that's what they did in Texas. They went to right-wing sources and they said, you guys make this curriculum that we're going to offer everybody. And let me give you just a few examples of what they ended up doing with this curriculum, because it's kind of wild what they did. So, for example, in 5th grade, one of the things the state wants 5th graders to read is Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. And that's great. Like, kids should read that. It's a 6-page letter, depending on the size of the font. It's short, and it's a really easy to read letter. And basically, King wrote that after he was arrested during a nonviolent protest, and after several white clergy members tried to tell Black Americans to just be patient, let's fight racism through the courts, and not do the sort of activism that you're doing. And King was arrested and he's put in jail, and he writes a letter basically saying, no, we're not taking that advice. And this is in a unit called Juneteenth and Beyond, which, okay, race relations, Black history since Juneteenth. Okay, interesting. Now, one of the things Martin Luther King says in this letter is, for years now, I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Black person with a piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. And he also quotes the line, justice too long delayed is justice denied. And in the middle of this letter, in the middle of this 6-page letter, there's one section. Let me show you this. It's the tiniest font right here, but on page 3 of this letter, he gets to this section right at the top of your screen. And look at what this says. Of course, there is nothing new about this kind of civil disobedience. It was seen sublimely in the refusal of Guy 1, Guy 2, and Guy 3 to obey the laws of Nebuchadnezzar because a higher moral law was involved. It was practiced superbly by the early Christians who were willing to face hungry lions and the excruciating pain of chopping blocks before submitting to certain unjust laws of the Roman Empire. Basically saying, no, civil disobedience is fine. They even did it in the Bible. And 2 things about that. Here's the story he was referencing. In the book of Daniel, those 3 dudes are thrown into a furnace because they are not bowing down to an image of the king of Babylon, false idol, and whatnot. The king of Babylon is this guy named Nebuchadnezzar. But when the king looks to see them burning in the furnace, he notices 4 figures, one of whom looks to be like the Son of God. And it turns out those 3 men escape unharmed. So that's the story that King is referencing. Like, those guys did what they had to do because they believed it was the right thing to do, and they were saved because of it. Okay, fine. That's a biblical reference in the King letter. But here's the thing. It's not necessarily the most important reference he makes in that letter. If you look at the Wikipedia article for Letter from Birmingham Jail, that doesn't even come up in that Wikipedia article. Because when people talk about what King wrote in that letter, those guys don't come up because the bigger picture of what he's trying to say is much more important. And also, like, he brings up Socrates and Aristotle. He brings up Brown versus Board of Education. He brings up Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln. If you want to ask kids, like, what does King mean when he references Abraham Lincoln here? What is he talking about with Brown v. Board of Education? Those are pertinent questions you could ask kids who are reading that and trying to contextualize it. Instead, in the Texas curriculum, look at what they have teachers do. A short, constructed response reading question. And they said, why did Martin Luther King reference the story of Daniel in his letter? Support your answer with evidence from the text. Write legibly in cursive. The cursive part is weird. But the point is, of all the things they could ask you about Martin Luther King's letter, what do they ask about in the Texas curriculum? Tell us what he meant by the Bible reference. And they don't stop there either. There is material about the Bible story because you guys, you have to understand the Bible story and not Like they do this over and over. And this is one example of it, but they do this repeatedly in the curriculum, where they just take any Bible reference they could find and blow it up way out of proportion as if that's the most important thing possible. And when they asked a guy who's in charge of this about this, like, why are you doing that? This is what he said. If you don't know who Nebuchadnezzar is, you don't know what Martin Luther King Jr. is talking about. That's a lie. You can absolutely figure out what he's talking about in context. How do you make sure that you can unlock in the minds of our kids their ability to wrestle with ideas that have surfaced in great works of literature? Like, you can totally figure it out using other things, but they chose the Bible. Okay, but you see what they're doing there. They took a small reference, they blew it out of proportion. Here is another thing they did in the, here's another example of this. There's a lesson for second graders called Fighting for the Cause, where they introduce second graders to activists who stood up for what they believed in, which, by the way, that's a great idea. You should absolutely teach second graders that. And this unit includes Jackie Robinson. It includes Dolores Huerta and Rosa Parks. And then, just for shits and giggles, they toss in the biblical Queen Esther. Like, she's not even real. Like, the Bible says Esther saved the Jewish people by foiling a plot to eradicate them. And that's why she's included in the unit. But, like, there's no evidence she actually existed and it's all a story. Students are not told that. Instead, here's an example of what kids are told. Look at this. You know how at the end of a chapter in like a grade school textbook, they have, here's some questions you should be able to answer now. Look at this. For what cause did William Wilberforce fight for during his lifetime? Hey, teachers, the answer is abolition and ending slavery. I'm going to skip to number 4. Look at the bottom. What action did Rosa Parks take that helped to bring about change in the South? She didn't give up her seat on the bus. And then look at question 2. What group of people did Queen Esther save from a plan to destroy them? The Jewish people of Persia. The question I don't have a problem with, but it's the implication that that guy's real, Rosa Parks is real, and Queen Esther is real, and this is real history that all kids need to know. And it gets even worse than that, because in the same packet of material for teachers, they also include photos that you could show kids. Like, here's a photo of Jackie Robinson. Here's a photo of Rosa Parks. And they include a picture of Queen Esther. Where did they get that from? Did she sit for a portrait session? It's like showing kids a picture of Jesus. Like, I'm pretty sure you did not have cameras. I'm pretty sure they did not paint a picture of him in real time. So where did this come from? They don't tell kids, but this is from an 1878 painting that a dude just made up. But they don't tell children this. They just act like she's real. And they even include one more thing. When you're showing kids that image, you're supposed to tell them, this is for teachers, you will read a story from the Bible about Queen Esther, a Jewish woman who was chosen by the king of Persia to be queen. And they basically say, here's Esther's story, and show them this picture so the kids know who we're talking about. But she's not real. What the hell? Like, Christianity in this entire curriculum is treated as fact. The Bible's characters are not taught to kids as characters, but actual living people in history. And whenever religion can be shoved into a lesson, they do it. There's a lesson for 5th graders about the Renaissance, which is fine, and they include a section on Leonardo da Vinci. And what did Leonardo da Vinci paint? Well, one of the paintings was The Last Supper. Hey, right then, you know what we can do here? Let's include a whole section on what the Last Supper is and what it meant. And hey, let's just read the Bible passage where they talk about the Last Supper. And they start doing this. Like, look at this. They include a section for kids. Like, here's what the Last Supper's all about. Let's read the story in the book of Matthew to see for ourselves what unfolded during the supper. There's another section like, let's just give you the Bible verses so you know what we're talking about. This is in a section on Da Vinci in a unit on the Renaissance. But this is what the whole damn curriculum does. And again, you could make an argument, I would make the argument, that it is important to teach kids about the Bible for the sake of cultural literacy. I want any kid, to know about the story of Adam and Eve, because I think there are so many allusions to that in literature and pop culture that you should know who Adam and Eve are, even if you don't believe in any of that shit, right? That's important. But if that's the goal, that includes telling kids, hey, this is a work of fiction. The Bible is a work of fiction. This is something some people believe, but I want to teach it to you for a different reason. You don't pretend it's real. All right? And as one professor even told that news outlet, the 74, this is a quotation that I thought was pretty on point. It is reasonable to devote some attention to the Bible, and state education standards across the nation often require such attention, said Mark Chansey. The problem, of course, is that sometimes the legitimate reason of cultural literacy is used as a smokescreen to hide religious and ideological agendas, which is exactly what is happening here. Okay? So, I will jump ahead to just say one other thing about this. There are actually classes offered, elective classes in high school, where you could learn about the Bible as literature, which is fine if it's taught objectively. It's just like never taught objectively. But the 74 pointed out that there are 1.7 million high school students in Texas. 1,200 of them, only 1,200, took that course like a year or two ago. They're not clamoring for this, right? So anyway, the curriculum, this Jesus-infused curriculum, it ended up being called Bluebonnet Learning. That's the official name of this curriculum. They passed it. It is now the generic default if you want to use it. And the reason I tell you all of this is because a disturbing story came out from the Texas Tribune this week. And this is what they said about it. Look at the headline. 1 in 4 Texas school districts sign up for the new Bible-infused curriculum. Roughly 25% of the schools across the state of Texas have said, you know what, we're not passing up the free money. So yeah, Texas, we will use this material and we'll take the money you're giving us for every student so that you promised us we would get if we use it. And according to what the news outlet found, check this out. Here we go. The Tribune obtained data through an open records request on the schools planning to use the Texas, Educational Authority's new Bluebonnet curriculum, which includes the religion-infused reading lessons, as well as some other stuff. According to the data, about 595 districts and charters signed up as of late June to use at least some parts of the curriculum, and about 317 said they would use the reading lessons. So that's a lot of school districts saying they're going to use it, and that is very disturbing. Now, there is a silver lining here. Many of the school districts involved said, we're only doing this because of the money. We don't actually think it's a good curriculum. We're doing it because it aligns with state standards, which they have to do anyway. But also, I think, and I might be wrong on this, don't quote me here, is that if your school is struggling and your kids are not performing on standardized tests where they need to be, and you're not using the state's materials, your district could be in big trouble. But if you are using the state's resources and you're struggling, you get a little bit of leeway. And so for some of these poorer school districts that do have a lot of struggles, this is kind of a way to hedge their bets. So they're also signing up for this curriculum just as an insurance policy of sorts. Now, does that mean they're going to teach the lessons with the religious messaging? Or are they going to skip over that and teach kids something useful instead? It is kind of early to tell, and this is something the article pointed out as well. Let me show you this. The religious references only make up a fraction of the reading curriculum, and using Bluebonnet does not necessarily mean a school plans to teach biblical lessons in their classrooms. They could, for example, ignore any chapters that reference Christianity and other religions, or they could choose to heavily lean on the biblical lessons while using another curriculum for other teachings. So we don't know what these districts are going to do yet. There was one other person I wanted to show you here. Look at this. Sandy Denning, an associate superintendent who works for one school district, told the Tribune that Bluebonnet's reading materials currently do not meet the level of rigor the district wants. Their reading materials suck. She did not point to any specific parts, but described the problem as across the board. So here is someone who's like, yeah, this material sucks, which implies they're not going to use it for the reading stuff. So even those Bible lessons might be tossed away, even though they're telling the state, yeah, we'll use your curriculum. I don't know. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that when a right-wing college and a right-wing think tank put together a reading curriculum, they have to dumb it down to incorporate all these Bible lessons. And the thing is, it would be bad enough if Texas lawmakers just wasted money on a bad curriculum, but they have once again weaponized public education to advance their religious agenda, right? This is Christian nationalism. They're using government to promote their religion. Like, they're not doing any of the things. Republicans in Texas are not doing anything to actually help students. They're not raising teacher pay. They're not addressing inequalities. They're just throwing the Bible at the issue, hoping that will just fix everything. And that is not how anything works. So the best case scenario here is that districts adopt the new curriculum, they ignore the religious stuff and they do their own thing, and the lawmakers back off. The worst case scenario is some of these school districts that don't know any better, they do teach what's handed to them and they treat reading class like it's Sunday school. And kids are just told to accept this stuff as real without ever thinking critically about it. And if it works, you know, Texas Republicans are not going to stop at Bible stories and reading lessons. They're going to do that in history lessons. They're going to do that in science lessons as well. They'll rewrite the curriculum everywhere they can to fulfill their religious mission. So that's kind of the scary thing about this. But 25% of schools are saying yes to this. I get why they're doing it, but that is disturbing. Okay, going to stop there for now. What questions we got over here? Great. No black people can understand discrimination without reading the Talmud, says Texas. You have to have religious references in everything you do. Otherwise, how will anyone get knowledge? It's impossible. I believe in Adam and Eve. I've seen the pictures. Yes. I hope it's the pictures with belly buttons too. Good luck with that one. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can have pictures of all of this stuff. There's artwork depicting religious scenes. It doesn't mean it actually happened. Jesus infused. Thank you for that donation. I appreciate your Jesus infused donation. FYI, bluebonnet refers to the state flower. Thank you so much for that reference. I did not pick up on that. Religious bribes now, huh? Nice. Here, teach our indoctrination and we will actually fund you. Yeah, very disturbing indeed. And again, they're not going to stop at this. They'll keep going. I wish religion was recognized as and taught strictly as mythology. I have little patience for literalists and fundamentalists, but knowing and understanding beliefs makes history easier to grasp. And not just history either. I think cultural literacy is important. I think knowing some of the Bible stories is very important, especially in an English class where you might have references to that in other classic works of literature. So again, teaching about the Bible in an objective way, I am all for it. That's not at all what these people are interested in. It's not what they're doing. All right, I'm jumping to another one. I got a couple more to go through. I know it's getting late here, but I will keep going. Let me skip ahead here and close a million tabs and try to make everything run faster. One moment. Okay. So not long ago, might have just been a week or two ago, or a little while ago, I made a video about how Arkansas had passed a law to put the 10 Commandments up in every classroom in the state. And there was a lawsuit that was filed over it. And a federal judge said this is totally unconstitutional. and you can't do this. And it's the same thing that's happened in Louisiana. That decision has been upheld by an appellate court. There's been a lawsuit in Texas, and a federal judge, I think I talked about this last week, a federal judge said it's unconstitutional. So right now, the 10 commandments in school, people are 0 for 3. Okay, so in Arkansas, here's what's really interesting. When the judge, his name is Timothy Brooks, when he weighed in on the Arkansas case, what he did is he had to come up with a decision to act quickly because school is starting now. Arkansas passed a law to put the 10 commandments in every classroom. Well, school is starting up. What should all these school districts do? And the lawsuit was happening. And the judge said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a really quick decision right now. It's a preliminary injunction. I'm going to say it's unconstitutional, but it only applies to the districts that are being sued right now. And there were only a handful of them being sued. What about the law itself? Is it unconstitutional? Is it illegal across the state? For that, we need an actual ruling from the judge, but that takes some time. So the bottom line is where we're at in Texas and in Arkansas is that the judges have issued preliminary injunctions that only apply to the school districts that were specifically named in the lawsuit. So in the case of Arkansas, and I don't think I covered this when I talked about the judge's decision because it happened afterwards, but in Arkansas, the church-state separation groups that filed the lawsuit, the ACLU of Arkansas, the ACLU National, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, they sent a letter to all the other school districts in Arkansas basically saying, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but a judge has ruled in our favor about the 10 commandments. Now, this decision, I'm summarizing this letter, but they said this ruling only applies to the districts named in the lawsuit. However, based on what the judge wrote, the law is clearly illegal. It's unconstitutional. So this letter says we are encouraging you when school starts up, do not put up 10 commandments posters because this judge is absolutely going to make you take them down. And if you put them up, we might have to sue you as well. Okay, so that's what this letter says. It's a long version of what I just said. So look at the last paragraph here. In light of the court's ruling that the Arkansas law is plainly unconstitutional, any school district that implements the law will be violating the First Amendment and could be inviting additional litigation. We thus urge you to respect the First Amendment rights of Arkansas students and families by not implementing the statute. So don't put up the 10 commandments. It would be bad. It would be a bad idea. The law is going to be illegal. We're just waiting for the judge to say as much for all the rest of you, right? That makes sense. And all the ACLU is doing in that letter is saying, we've already gone after these districts and we won. You're next if you try doing this. So we're just giving you a heads up. Don't do it. Well, guess what happened after they sent that letter? By the way, in a normal world where everyone followed the laws, including Republicans, the state of Arkansas would have sent that letter to all these school districts saying, hey, you know that law that we passed in the legislature a little while ago? Apparently, a judge says it's unconstitutional, so we don't want you to get sued, so don't do that thing. That's what a responsible state would have done. But this is a state run by Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So, of course, they didn't do it. So the ACLU and those church state separation groups had to do it. Anyway, guess what happened? In one particular school district, the Conway School District, they did it anyway. Here's a picture of the 10 Commandments in a classroom. And it's not the only picture we have. They did it in another classroom as well. And so now we have proof that the school district put up the 10 Commandments in violation of the law. So what happens at this point? Because this school district was not being sued. It wasn't part of the original lawsuit, but they are now in session and they are now breaking the law. And by the way, in a letter to that district's principals, the district's lawyer told everybody, hey, the judge's orders only apply to the 4 school districts specifically mentioned, not ours. That's what their lawyer said to all the school's principals. So here's where it gets interesting. And this is what I had to share with you. I was so excited to share this with you because in the span of 1 week, here's what happened. The church state separation group sent that letter. They found out that this one school district is putting up the 10 Commandments anyway. They went back to the judge and said, hey, you know how we sued you on behalf of those, the parents and their kids in these 4 school districts? Can we make an edit to our lawsuit and toss in one more school district? And normally a court would say, you already filed the lawsuit. You can't just add more people to it in the middle of this. But basically, the argument from the church state separation side was that, well, listen, we have new plaintiffs, new parents and their students, and they did not realize their district was going to violate the law until their kids began the school year and they saw the Christian signs. So we literally could not have included these people until the school year started. And by the way, these parents did ask the school district to take down the posters, and the administrators said no. And so they tell the judge all of this, and the judge says on a Wednesday, I think of last week, he says, fine, I will give you permission to amend your lawsuit. We'll go back in time. You amend your lawsuit and you include the people we are talking about. And so the church state separation groups amend their lawsuit and they say, yeah, we're representing all these people in the white. And by the way, everything I've highlighted here are our new plaintiffs and their kids. And by the way, in addition to the 4 school districts, we're also suing the Conway School District. So they submit this revised lawsuit. That was on a Wednesday. I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. The judge gave them permission on Wednesday to redo their lawsuit. On Thursday morning, they submit this. And one of the things they mentioned in this lawsuit that I really thought was interesting, because it's a copy paste from what they submitted earlier, but they have some new details about the Conway School District. And they say that one parent emailed the school board as soon as she saw the 10 Commandments poster in her kid's classroom, and she said it should be taken down. And a board member named Trip Leach responded, to answer your question, no, I do not think I will. I do not agree with you at all, but I'm glad to hear you had a great time at the open house. Like, what dickish behavior. And they document it all. And so on Thursday night, the night they submit this, guess what the judge says? The judge hears he says, hey, you know how I issued a preliminary injunction that applied to everybody, to those 4 school districts? In this case, let me show you what he said. If I could find it. Here we go. Check this out right here. It was a 4-page ruling the judge issues on Thursday night. Having reviewed the above factors, the court finds that the requirements, blah, 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 Conway plaintiffs, there we go. Conway plaintiffs are identically situated to the original plaintiffs. They advance the same legal arguments, assert the same constitutional injuries, and request the same relief. And so earlier in August, we said, hey, those 4 school districts cannot put the 10 Commandments up because that would be violating the First Amendment rights of everybody. Since Conway School District was not named in the preliminary injunction, they put up 10 Commandments posters anyway. And look at this. Conway plaintiffs, like the original plaintiffs, have demonstrated that this district is violating the Establishment Clause. Further, it's likely that displaying the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms violates those families' constitutional rights by 1, usurping the parents' parental authority to direct their kids' religious upbringing and education, and 2, subjecting the kids to religious doctrine and beliefs in a way that conflicts with what their families want, and 3, sending a message to kids that they do not belong in their own school community because they do not subscribe to the state's preferred religious doctrine, and 4, they're religiously coercing the children by pressuring them to observe, meditate on, venerate, and follow the state's favored religious text, and to suppress expression of their own religious beliefs and backgrounds. Oh my God. So because Arkansas's law is likely to violate these people's constitutional rights, this judge says it's illegal there too. So basically, it is therefore ordered. Is this all legalese? It's kind of legalese. The long story short of it, the judge says, you know what I said to those 4 school districts? It applies to you too. I love it. So we're still waiting for a final ruling from this judge as to what all these school districts across the state should be doing. But we know for a fact that one school district decided to put up the 10 commandments. The church-state separation groups jumped in to say, we're suing you too. And the judge immediately said, yeah, I'm saying you can't do this either. And so here's the question. Who else wants to try? Who else wants to get sued over this? Or do all of you just want to listen to the church-state separation groups and wait for the judge's decision before you decide what to do, whether or not to follow this law? So thank goodness for this judge for realizing how quickly they needed to act on this. I mean, it's just another reminder that these religious laws are not getting traction in any court. Okay? This is a warning. Do not play politics with the Constitution. And a district, their staff, their administrators, they should be focused on making sure kids get the best possible education. And all the places putting up these 10 commandments signs, they are getting distracted from doing their actual job because they're so obsessed with promoting state-sponsored religion. Like, don't gamble with taxpayer dollars by getting sued over something you can avoid. So look, lesson learned here. If you're in Arkansas, if you're a school district in Arkansas, if you defy this judge, you will be dragged into this lawsuit too, and you will lose. So just listen to the church-state separation groups that actually know what they're doing. Don't listen to the Christian nationalist zealots running the state government, right? The Constitution doesn't bend to Christianity. The courts, thankfully, so far, are not either, at least in this case. So don't listen to the people who are trying to get you sued. So some happy ending on this. We're still waiting for the judge's final ruling. All right, what questions we got here? They elected a felon. The conservatives here only care about law when they can weaponize it for their own agendas. I know. That's why it's heartening when good people win these lawsuits, when judges actually take the Constitution seriously. It's why groups should oppose all of Trump's judicial nominees that he's making. It's very disturbing what they're doing to the law right now. Christians can bend it however they want, it seems. And again, all of these 10 commandment laws, it's all the goal of it is not to put the 10 commandments in schools. The goal is to get sued over it and keep appealing until it gets to the Supreme Court, at which point they're hoping the Supreme Court will say the 10 commandments in schools are legal. That's their long-term plan here. But right now they're getting no traction, and these judges are not ambiguous about saying this is bullshit. You can't do anything close to this, which makes it a lot harder to find. If you have no sympathetic judges, it's a lot harder to get even this Supreme Court to look at your case. What I think is weird here is from confirmation to bar mitzvahs, all the big religions don't force the commandments on children because they are children and not responsible. Yeah, and again, most of the commandments are BS anyway. If you want to force your religion on people, there are more effective ways to do it. There's a reason you don't see the 10 commandments in churches, because why would you do that? They're BS. There are better ways to get people to convince you, like having a youth pastor play guitar. That's more effective than the 10 commandments. But again, this is about merging their religion with the state. It's not about helping kids. Isn't Arkansas near the bottom of ratings for their education system? I mean, I know Oklahoma has it worse, but I don't know where Arkansas is off the top of my head. All right, I'm jumping to another story. Give me a moment here. Ah, yes. Okay. All right. This is going to sound like an identical story to the Arkansas Ten Commandments one I just said, but I swear to you it's different. So here's what you need to know. All these states, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, they've all passed laws to put the Ten Commandments up in school. Judges, federal judges in all three, covering all three states, have said it's unconstitutional. And in Texas, just like in Arkansas, the judge said all the school districts that have been that are the defendants in this lawsuit about putting the Ten Commandments up, he issued a preliminary injunction saying the Ten Commandments cannot go up in these school districts, and he had to do that right away because school is starting, and the judges were waiting on the judge to issue his final ruling. Now, I believe last week I did a whole segment, or 2 weeks ago maybe, I did a whole segment on how awesome this ruling from the judge in Texas was. He even said, look, if you want to help kids, there are many other things you could do. You could put up E pluribus unum if you want. You could put up the moral precepts of Buddhism. You could also put up the golden rule on the walls. That would be helpful. Or you could put up all I really needed to know I learned in kindergarten. That would be a way, if you want to help kids be moral, that you could do all that stuff. It's legal, but you can't put up the Ten Commandments. And what this judge in Texas did at the very end, I know we talked about this, but it's still fun. For those who disagree with the court's decision and who would do so with threats, vulgarities, and violence, grace and peace unto you. May humankind of all faiths, beliefs, and non-beliefs be reconciled to one another. So that judge in Texas said the 16, I believe, school districts in Texas that were named in the lawsuit, you cannot put up the Ten Commandments. I'll get back to you all with my decision on whether the law passed in Texas is constitutional or not for the entire state. So we are waiting on that ruling, same situation as in Texas. Okay, let me cut to a guy named Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, because, as I said in the Arkansas story, if you're the Attorney General of Texas and this judge issues this ruling, the responsible thing to do would be to send a letter to all the school districts in the state saying, hey, you know how we in Texas passed this law to put up the Ten Commandments? Well, a judge says it's wildly unconstitutional. And so for the sake of all of you, we are telling you all, as the Attorney General, I'm telling all of you, don't put up the Ten Commandments. Let's wait to see what the judge says. And based on what the judge rules, we will get back to you. We don't want you to get sued. We don't want you to be in some place of ambiguity. So just hold off on the Ten Commandments thing, even though school is starting. That's what a responsible Attorney General would do. But this is not a responsible Attorney General. This is Ken Paxton, who is arguably the most corrupt politician in the country right now. And this is a country full of people in the Trump administration. Ken Paxton is such a monster that recently, and we made fun of him for this, he recently got divorced. And in his divorce, his wife, who happens to be a state senator, Angela Paxton, she wrote, I believe marriage is a sacred covenant, and I have earnestly pursued reconciliation. But in light of recent discoveries, I do not believe that it honors God or is loving to myself, my children, or Ken to remain in the marriage. And she also said, I love the in light of recent discoveries. She also said that the couple stopped living together a year prior. So that's interesting. Like, I don't necessarily need to know her personal stuff. I don't think I need to know anybody's personal drama. But also it's Ken Paxton, and he's a guy who is very much I'm a good Christian, so everything I do is perfect. And behind the scenes, he's not. That same article, by the way, look at this. The impeachment claims, they tried to impeach him in Texas. Republicans tried to impeach Ken Paxton in Texas, and the House did it. And the state Senate said, no, we're gonna side with the dude, even though he's horrible. But anyway, the impeachment claims focused on benefits Paxton provided to Austin real estate developer Nate Paul, as well as an alleged extramarital affair the Attorney General had with a former Senate aide. According to investigators, the affair ended briefly in 2019 after his wife learned of it, But then it resumed in 2020. The woman he allegedly had an affair with was called to testify before the Senate and came to the chamber, but left without speaking. And this isn't even like the worst thing. What else did Ken Paxton do? Last year, prosecutors agreed to drop a 9-year-old felony securities fraud case against him. He has also closed the door on a federal investigation into corruption, allegations his former aides lodged with the FBI, and overcome a state bar of Texas attempt to sanction him over his move to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. So not only is Ken Paxton a giant piece of shit for all these reasons, Republicans don't like this guy. And of course, if you follow politics, you know Ken Paxton is running to be senator from Texas, and he wants to get rid of the current incumbent Republican John Cornyn. And it is very much a toss-up race because you have a reliable MAGA conservative in John Cornyn, and you have a absolute piece of shit MAGA guy in Ken Paxton. And we honestly don't know what Republicans like more. So that's Ken Paxton for you. So here's why I bring all of this up. Because after that judge said the 10 Commandments cannot go up in the handful of school districts named in the lawsuit, Ken Paxton sent out a message saying this. This is on X/Twitter. Breaking. I'm encouraging Texas schools to begin the legal process of putting prayer back in the classroom and recommending the Lord's Prayer for students. In Texas classrooms, we want the Word of God opened, the 10 Commandments displayed, and prayers lifted up. Which, by the way, even in other states, all the people promoting the 10 Commandments are very much like, no, I'm not trying to get religion in schools. No, why would you say that? I'm just trying to honor our nation's history because the 10 Commandments is a historical document. And here's Ken Paxton, who's like, yeah, I 100% want religion in school, and you should also say the Lord's Prayer. And let's look through this thing that he sent out on September 2nd, because this is just, he's such a garbage human. In Texas classrooms, we want the Word of God open, the 10 Commandments displayed, and prayers lifted up. Twisted radical liberals want to erase truth, dismantle the solid foundation that America's success and strength were built upon, and erode the moral fabric of our society. Ken Paxton, the most corrupt man in all of Texas, is like, we need to protect our moral fabric. And you can trust me, I'm just a dude that everyone hates. Our nation was founded on the rock of biblical truth, capital B, capital T, and I will not stand by while the far left attempts to push our country into the sinking sand. Oh my God. And then he goes on. What else does he say here? The bill also directs the Office of the Attorney General to defend school districts that get sued. And for Texas students, considering how to best utilize this time, like a moment of silence, Attorney General Paxton encourages children to begin with the Lord's Prayer as taught by Jesus Christ. Here, kids, do you want to know what you should do during the moment of silence? Here's the leader, the Attorney General of the state saying, you should try saying something for Christianity. Hey, Jews and Muslims, you know what you should do? Say this. Ken Paxton is like absolutely denying what everyone else has said about the 10 Commandments being history. He's like, yeah, it's religion. We want religion in school. Not only do we want religion in school, let me put out a press release telling everyone to say the Lord's Prayer in school. Like, it's very much a, what are you going to do to me? You can't stop me. I'm Ken Paxton. Even John Cornyn tried to get a piece of this, and this is what he posted. There you go again. 10 Commandments for thee, but not for me. Ken? Which honestly, that's such a weak clap back. Are you seriously doing this? I mean, if you want to go at this guy for being a hypocrite, because Ken Paxton is very much a Christian hypocrite, then listen, Cornyn, I hope you both lose this race. But if you want to go after Ken Paxton for being a piece of shit, go after him. What are you doing? If you're using the word "the" in your clapback, you're doing it wrong. Hire Gavin Newsom, social media person, and like really go after this guy. Oh my God, this is weak. But again, yes, Ken Paxton doesn't want to follow the Ten Commandments himself, but he definitely wants you to pretend to follow them. So even the Republicans are fighting amongst each other to figure out how they should do this. But here's the situation that schools are now in. Because imagine this. You're a school district in Texas. School starts up now. A judge has already told like 16 school districts the Ten Commandments are illegal. The law that was passed says you got to put up the Ten Commandments. So what do? If you put them up, you might get sued. That's what happened in Arkansas. And that district has already lost. The judge has already said take it down. But if you don't put them up, you might have Ken Paxton coming after you because you're not following the law. And this is the bind that Texas educators are now in because their state has no clue which law they should be following here. And this is a quotation, by the way, from a guy I quoted earlier because he gets quoted for everything. Mark Chancey, a Bible studies professor at Southern Methodist University, says it's a no-win situation. Districts that post the commandments will be faulted for disregarding the courts and the Constitution. Districts that do not post them will be faulted for not following the state law. Yeah, I don't know what advice I would give these schools at this point because, again, the right thing to do is tell them, don't put up the Ten Commandments, even though there was a law about that, because a judge has said it's wrong. And we're just waiting for the judge to solidify that for the entire state. It's a matter of time. And this is the thing. The law says the Ten Commandments must be displayed in every classroom if they're donated, but it also says districts don't have to purchase them if they're not donated, leaving schools in legal mire. Leaders must decide whether to purchase extra posters so every classroom has one, leave classrooms without posters if there are not enough donated, or just wait until the legality is cleared up in the courts to post them at all. And honestly, even if the judge says it's illegal, what do you think Ken Paxton's going to do? Is he going to say, all right, well, I guess we should listen to the judge? Or is he going to say, screw it, do it anyway? So what if you get sued? My office will represent you. It'll cost the taxpayers money, but they don't care. It's Texas. These instructions from Paxton leave school districts in limbo, said one law professor. According to the Attorney General, it seems wait until you're sued is the order of the day. Don't comply before you are sued and before there is a judgment issued against you. Like, this is what Ken Paxton wants to do. At one school district, the district council advised the district against placing the posters up while awaiting a ruling. And that guidance came just after they got hundreds of posters from volunteers. And so what happens now? The district has begun delivering the posters to their schools. They will be put up by the first class on September 2nd. While we anticipate that further court action may result in an injunction requiring their removal, we're going to comply with the law, which is a long way of saying, Ken Paxton, don't be mad at us. Look, we got the posters, we're putting them up, but we're well aware that if this judge says it's illegal across the state, we're going to have to take them down. All this does is it wastes everybody's time. Instead of helping students, these teachers or administrators have to put up posters in every classroom, and in some time, they're probably going to have to take them all down, and they have an attorney general who's like, who cares if you get sued? This is the only thing I care about. You think he cares about anything else? Like, no, he wants to build his entire Senate campaign off of this. Here's another one. This other school district does not have a policy, nor has any message been shared by the district on the inclusion of the Ten Commandments in classrooms. We have not produced nor shared any guidance or training with teachers on discussing the Ten Commandments in their classrooms. So we're not even doing anything. So don't be mad at us. And one more. It is not at all clear how this legal battle is ultimately going to play out, said the professor. The only thing that is certain is that school districts are going to receive criticism from some constituents if they post the commandments and from others if they don't. Let me offer some advice. Don't waste your time putting it up. Odds are Ken Paxton has other things to do than go after you. Just don't waste your time. Focus on the kids, help them out. The 10 Commandments are a waste of everyone's time. Listen to the judge. And by the way, hey, judges in Arkansas and Texas, can you issue your rulings already? So this is just done? Anyway, all right, I'll stop there with the Ken Paxton story. What else we got here? I got one more thing right after this. Is boiling a goat in milk even sanitary? Thanks, 10 Commandments. But see, thank you for that donation. You're talking about the other set of 10 Commandments in the Bible, not the 10 Commandments that they are putting up in the classrooms. You know that because you've read the Bible. None of these people have. What about teachers with religious objections to them being posted in their classroom? It's a lovely question that would be great to talk about if people in Texas cared what teachers think. It doesn't matter. The law says they got to go up in every classroom, and they literally don't care about the objections. I am curious if any teacher will sue over the law because of the fact that it violates their personal religious beliefs, because all the lawsuits we've talked about involve parents representing their kids, not from teachers or administrators. I would love to see that happen, though, if these laws are still on the books, if the judges allow them to go on. All right, I got one last story. It's a quick one, but I figured I cannot just let this one slide. You may have heard that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged. And you know that because I am the source of all your pop culture knowledge. But the reason I bring that up is because there was an interesting commentary, because the right-wing commentators are like, how can we make this about us? It's Taylor Swift. She's good for content. So how can we get all the clicks from this? And I debated whether or not to do this, but also I kind of want to do this. Let me share with you one thing that was said by Ben Shapiro, because he had a take on this that, of course, is utterly stupid, but he had some advice for Taylor now that she's going to be engaged. And he's super hopeful, because you may recall that about a year ago, when you still had hope and Kamala Harris had picked Tim Walz, Taylor Swift posted a comment after the vice presidential debate, I believe, where she basically endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and she made fun of JD Vance. She was holding a picture of her cat, and she said on behalf of cat ladies, she's endorsing Kamala Harris. And the right-wing people hated her for this. And so that's the background you need to know going into this clip right here. Did I say Ben Shapiro? It might be Charlie Kirk. I can't tell. They're all the same dude. Whatever.
Taylor Swift might go from a cat lady to a JD Vance supporter. And I think we should celebrate that. I think that Taylor Swift having 2 or 3 children, she should have more children than she has houses. That is my challenge, Taylor Swift. And I'm not being sarcastic. I think that if she ends up having children, she'll stop this kind of liberal endorsing Joe Biden nonsense. And we want Taylor Swift on Team America. We want you to leave the island of the wokies. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Engage in reality more and get outside of the abstract clouds. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge.
Charlie Kirk, not Ben Shapiro. Still the same dude. I don't really treat them any differently. A couple things about the idiotic things he said there, though. First of all, this idea that she's never given any thought, he implies she's never really thought about why she's a liberal, but now that she's engaged and she's going to get married and hopefully she'll have kids, because all the right cares about is birth rates, that maybe she'll become a JD Vance supporter, which is a dumb thing to say, because why would anyone be a JD Vance supporter? I kind of get why the cult likes Donald Trump, but why on earth would they like JD Vance? Anyway, this idea that once she has kids and once she gets married, then she'll stop being liberal. It's just the dumbest idea. And they say this about atheists all the time. Once you're older, once you have a family, you'll find religion, or once you read the Bible, you'll have a better sense of why you should believe in God or whatever. Once you've they say there are no atheists in foxholes, because once you undergo trauma of some sort, once you're in a difficult situation, surely then you will believe in God. And I always hated that comment, those types of comments too, because it implies I never actually put thought into why I'm an atheist. And in the case of Taylor Swift, he's saying now that you're going to get married and you might have kids, then you'll stop being liberal, as if Taylor Swift has never given any thought to policies or politics and why she's endorsing a candidate, as if she did it because she thought it would be the popular thing to do and not the right thing to do. This implication that she's too dumb to think this for herself. The idea that she's not on Team America unless she becomes conservative. And then at the very end there, he encourages her to reject feminism, which again, her entire brand is giving. I mean, I know she has fans everywhere, but like little girls are very much her fans because she kind of shows them you could do anything, you could be anything. They look up to her. You think she's going to reject feminism? I'm pretty sure she has kind of dealt with it her entire life, and the things that have been said to her about her, I'm sure she has a grasp on why she's a feminist. But the funniest thing he says at the end, submit to your husband. She's a billionaire who is like a pioneer in music. And that is not a knock on Travis Kelce. He's a very good football player, but in terms of money, she's way wealthier than he is. In terms of fame, she's way more famous than he is. And yet, what is Charlie Kirk / Ben Shapiro saying? You got to submit to your husband, because it doesn't matter to them what level of success you have had as a woman. Doesn't matter how much more popular, how much more power you have in a relationship. You have to submit to the man. There's nothing you can do as a woman that will ever suggest that the man should not be in charge of a relationship. And he also said later in that clip that she should change her name to Taylor Kelce because she doesn't really mean it unless she changes her name. Like, honestly, I'm guessing neither of them are going to change their names. But also, listen, Travis Kelce would get so much more popular by changing his name to Travis Swift. Anyway, it just goes to show that these people are never going to be happy about anything. They're never going to let a woman succeed without knocking her down a few pegs in the name of Jesus. But that's what these people are doing. And I mean, they can't handle that the most popular, powerful musician in the country, the most famous artist in the country, is both a liberal who's going at things in her own pace, in her own way. She seems genuinely happy. Like, I have no thoughts about her as a famous person. I like her music for what it's worth. It's always playing every time I'm in the car because I travel with my family places. But like, that's the thing. She's fine. And yet it's never good enough for these people because she's not a dude. Anyway, I'll take questions. I didn't have anything else to say other than I wanted to show you that stupid clip and just show you how dumb these people are. He's underestimating Taylor. I mean, yes, but also in so many ways, right? Like, he's underestimating how much power. He doesn't know what their relationship is like, what they're going to do in terms of, I don't know what they're going to do with names or where they're going to live or what they're going to do. But the fact is, he's underestimating just how much power and fame she has, as if she needs to submit to him in any way that is not voluntary. It's so weird. It's so weird how these people on the right care about other people's families and how many babies they have, and nothing about the substance of those relationships. Because that's kind of the through line every time they talk about other people. I don't know why we're talking about Taylor when Miley is queen. How dare you? Banned from my channel. She should stop flying her jet everywhere. So environmentally destructive. Yeah, I agree. Listen, capitalism, there's no good way to deal with capitalism. So yeah, you could criticize her, but again, if you want to criticize her for flying her jet, just make sure you're saying that to everybody who flies with it as well. I'm also not sure how she's supposed to travel in any other way. That's not a defense of her flying the jet, but like, you can't fly coach or first class because you wouldn't be able to move at that point if you're someone like her. I don't know what the alternative is. I don't know what famous rich people are like. All right. I think we're done. Thank you so much, everybody. I will hopefully see you next week from the waist up, because I won't have legs anymore based on everything I'm about to do. Thank you so much. So I'll be back next Thursday night. Thank you to Den for all the help. And when you can subscribe to the newsletter right here. When I'm back next Thursday night, it might be a little later, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. I'm not sure yet. I will figure that out. How much money do you think is lost by the sheer lack of imagination on the right? You know what? Bad question. And I'll tell you why. Because no amount of money is lost on the right, because all those right-wing hosts and all those right-wing commentators all have like billionaire donors who just throw money at them to say this stuff in very fancy studios. There are a lot of studies that have been published about how much money is thrown at right-wing content creators. It's insane. So the lack of imagination is a feature, not a bug. All right. I'll see you next week. Have a good one.